Hello, and welcome to Productivity in Prose, a podcast about making the most of your writing time and honing your craft. Whether you're a seasoned author or a new writer, this podcast offers helpful tips to maximize your writing time, increase your writing productivity, and tackle the sometimes tough aspects of the writer life. I'm your host, Emily, author of Suspended in the Stars, among other things, and today's topic is how to be a more productive writer in 2024. Who's ready to be productive this year? The thing about this question is that it's easy to give a big yes when we're only a few days or maybe weeks into the new year. But ask this question in July or onward, and the answer is bound to be less than enthusiastic. Well, at least for most people. I know it's been true for me in the past. I'll admit, I've got a case of the let's do all the things at the moment, because the year is still new and I'm still excited about the prospects. New podcast, new books to work on, new design projects, new adventures to be had, you name it, and it's all new from the January point of view. But the question is, how do we keep that excitement up, which helps fuel our productivity for a whole year and not just a few months? I've picked 6 things that I'll be putting into place as I plan out this year. My goal is to be as productive as possible in 2024 without losing focus on important things like my faith, family, friendships, and having fun. And trust me, having fun is important. A note here from someone who has over-focused on being too productive. It's important to find out what your priorities are. Maybe this needs its own episode, because while writing and design are very important to me, they aren't the most important thing. My faith and relationships trump work, but sometimes those priorities have to shift. As an example, I'm currently entering a personal season of extreme busyness. Part of it is just rollover from last year when I couldn't fully clear my plate of all my client work. But the other part comes in the form of unexpected projects that, while good, are just that, unexpected. I'm reminded that you can't plan for everything, and there will be seasons of being more and less productive. Either way, stepping into a new year or just a new season with some focus should help. Okay, on to the 6 things. Number 1, priorities. Yes, I just mentioned this, but I put it at number 1 because I think it's most important and it deserves its own section. You absolutely must establish your priorities before you start your plan. And this, of course, is assuming you have a plan. If you missed episode 2, make sure you go back and give it a listen. It'll help you make your plan for this year. Now, I'm not just talking about prioritizing what manuscript is going to take the top slot in your work life, but what all of your priorities are. If you're married, your spouse is a priority. If you've got kids, priority. Even if you just have pets like us, they can be somewhat of a priority. And if you're single, you still have priorities like spending time with friends, family, possibly a job, or other things. We all have things that matter to us, and you need to understand where your writing fits in that hierarchy. I remember one year, a while back when I was still single, that I decided to make writing my priority. I was working and had a good friend group, but making writing a priority meant that I wasn't always able to go out with those friends, and sometimes I worked on the weekends. That was because I had a goal in mind, finishing my book. Set your priorities in place at the start of the year and know what priorities must take precedent. For those who are pre-published, this may look like prioritizing finishing your first draft and sending it off to critique partners. For those of us who are published, depending on where you're at in the process, this could look like getting edits done, finishing a manuscript by your deadline, or getting a book finished and submitted to editors. Here's a practical tip. Having these priorities listed somewhere visible can be extremely helpful. I suggest taking a sheet of paper or a note card and writing out 3 big goals you have for yourself this year. Then place that card where you'll easily see it. Use this list as a reminder when you're feeling down, unmotivated, or tempted to take a day off. If it seems like too few goals, that's okay. As I said in the last episode, you can always add more goals if you accomplish those first 3. But it's daunting to look at a list of 5+ things you want to finish in a year when you're at a low point. Number 2, stick to a reasonable plan. Is there an echo in here? I know. I'm probably going to burn you all out with my use of the word plan, especially those listeners who are pantsers. But I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to make a plan and stick to it. This doesn't mean that things can't change. I know they will. But it just means adjusting the plan and then recommitting to it. Word of advice comes from personal experience and oh so many days where I felt aimless in my writing. It's so easy to make a plan and then forget to even look at it. It's as if making the plan was the work and then doing it is just too much. But if you start feeling that way, it could indicate that your plan was too aggressive and maybe it needs some revising. Make your plan as simple and as reasonable as possible, knowing that you can always add to it. And this is me speaking to myself here. Emily, are you listening? Why is this plan so important? Well, it's because you're making it when you're filled with excitement about your writing career at whatever stage you're in. You want to do the things you're putting on this list. Later versions of yourself might argue with that plan, it might shift, or circumstances may dictate a different project needs to take precedence. But having that initial plan that comes from a place of excitement is a huge motivating factor. It's natural for us as humans to slowly lose interest, and it's easy, oh so easy, for us to backtrack and then feel awful about not meeting our goals. Hello, I have totally done that. I think this happens for several reasons though, but one of the big ones is that our eyes were too big for our stomachs. You know what I mean, right? When you're in the line at a buffet, or perhaps you're at a holiday meal with family, and you load your plate up with everything because it looks so good. You're convincing yourself that you can eat it all, but 3/4 of the way through, you regret your choices because you just cannot eat another bite. We do the same thing with our writing. I actually do this all the time. Oh sure, I'll just fit in that extra novel I want to write. Nope. If it doesn't logically fit on your calendar, take it off. Dare I say it again? You can always add things, but it's so hard to take them away when you feel overcommitted, burnt out, and stressed. Take it from me. Less is more and will improve the quality of your life as well as your writing. Number 3, friend support. This one is simple, but oh so important. Get yourself some awesome writer friends. I am blessed to be a part of a few small writing groups, but I also have other writing friends I've met through Instagram and my Patreon page. I know that I can reach out to these people if I'm struggling, whether I'm wondering if my plan is too aggressive or if it's August and I don't know why I said I'd write those 3 extra books by the end of the year. Those are the friends I turn to for support, wise advice, and sometimes a kick in the pants. Here's looking at you, Kristen. I suggest here at the onset of a new year, you reach out to your writer group and share some goals. They'll tell you if they think you're overreaching with your plans, and you should listen to them. But also, they'll be the ones who are there for you, ready to pick you up, dust you off, and get you back on track when things are looking shaky. A side note here. For those of you who are wondering how or where to find those friends, there are several different options. I'll likely outline these more in depth in a future episode, but for now, a few options are national writing groups like SCBWI for children's and young adult writers, ACFW for Christian writers, Railmaker for Christian speculative writers, and local writers groups. You could probably ask your library to see if there's something in your area. I'm sure there are a lot more groups, but I am personally familiar with these. You can also find people to connect with through Instagram. You can search writing hashtags or find writer accounts and connect with them and their followers. Patreon is also a great option. I personally have a Patreon page where you can connect with other writers in all stages too. Check out the EAH Coalition on Patreon. But in all of this, remember, to have friends means you need to be a friend. Sometimes that means being the first one to reach out to someone new on Instagram, and other times it means asking your friends about their writing plans and how you can help support them. Number 4, focusing on health. Boy, oh boy, is this a big one. I'm the first to admit that the winter months have me huddled next to the fire and crying at the thought of going out for a run. But my mind and my body remind me that no matter the temperature, I've got to be active to be the best writer I can be. I decided to train for a half marathon last year in the midst of one of the busiest seasons of my career thus far. Why? Because I wanted to challenge myself and I wanted to focus on my health. I do not think you have to sign up for the next available race to be healthy, but I do think that combating the more sedentary lifestyle of a writer with exercise of any kind is a good idea. Eat whole foods, cut back on sugar, get 8+ hours of sleep, take a walk a day. Do the things that will not only help your mind find relaxation, but will also help your body feel better too. Our body's health contributes to our mind's health and can be a huge asset in finding energy, especially mid-year, for our to-do lists and writing goals. More on this in the next episode. Number 5, breaks and rest. This may seem counterintuitive to productivity, but I promise it's not. In fact, sometimes taking a break or time out to rest is the best thing for your writing. I found this out the hard way. Either you can plan in rest days or weeks, or you can end up taking them anyway because you have no energy or motivation, and then you're only more stressed when you come back to find that you're extra behind. I know, not ideal, but I share that to show that planning in breaks and taking time to rest when you need it will only help you be more creative. This may look like scheduling in a week or a month between projects, taking weekends or weekdays off from writing, setting a reasonable word count or page or some other metric goals for each writing session, or knowing your writing limit for each year and not pressing yourself to do more than you know you should. Honestly, this is something I'm still wrestling with. How much time off is too much time? Or how much is too little? I'm hoping to make some strides in finding out that sweet spot this year, and I'll keep you posted. A note here on deadlines. Sometimes, as a professional writer, you can't help chaotic deadlines as they come unexpectedly. I myself have experienced this and have several friends who have all had to write in less than ideal circumstances due to looming deadlines. It's so difficult to be in this situation, and oftentimes it will mean relying more heavily on your support system, either at home or in your writing community, in order to gain the energy to make it through. I share this to say it may be that you can't take that break you need, but that only means that after you've met that deadline, you must take that break to make up for it. It will be even more crucial then to help you recover. And number 6, grace. Perhaps the hardest one for me, giving myself grace. I'll share a story here to explain. I'm very much a type A personality, an Enneagram 2 wing 1, if you will. And that means I commit to things and I do not like to go back on those commitments. I hit mid-November last year and finally finished my next Belle Renshaw Christmas novel. It's the start of a whole new series with new characters and has a slightly suspenseful element that I've been worried about for a while now. I'm still worried if that isn't clear. But there I was, finally writing the end on a Christmas story in November. If you don't write Christmas books, this may not mean anything to you, but October, November, and December are prime Christmas book reading months, and I had only just finished the book, and I don't mean with edits. But I told my newsletter list I was going to have a Christmas book out this year. This year. If you're anything like me, I'm sure you can imagine the anguish I was facing. Should I work myself to the bone and get it edited, the cover designed, and promotion done by Christmas? Should I forsake all my other work and focus on this one book? No, of course not. But that decision was so hard to come by. It's so difficult to offer myself grace for the simple fact that life didn't turn out like I thought it would. Now, if anyone else said they couldn't make their commitment due to life circumstances, I would have totally understood. But since it was my plans that were falling through, I had a really hard time with it. Oh, the freedom when I sent out that email saying I was going to postpone until the next year. And you know what? I got so many replies from people who said they admired me for making the hard decision and that they thought I'd made the right choice. So much support for me admitting that I'm human and I just can't do it all. This year, if you need it, and let's be honest, we all need it, offer yourself that grace. Let yourself make plans and goals, do your best to meet them, but find grace for the times when life gets in the way and it's just not possible to finish. This grace doesn't negate the hard work, discipline, or the plans you've made, but it's there for when you've done your best and you can't meet that goal or finish that plan. If you're wondering how to amp up your productivity as a writer in 2024, remember these 6 things. Start off by knowing your priorities. Stick to a reasonable plan. Rely on that friend support. Focus on your health. Plan in breaks and rest. And give yourself grace when you need it. And I'll add in one more. There's no substitute for doing the hard work. Let's be honest, there will come days, maybe even weeks or months, when you're tired or uninspired. You'll fight with your work in progress and your unruly characters. You'll also likely face imposter syndrome, procrastination, fear, anxiety, and maybe even a little dread when you sit down to write. But the true test of a writer is the person who writes through the difficulty. This writer understands that you must have words on the page in order to make them better words. They fight through the challenges, not give in to them, in order to create their art. It's not easy, but I know you can do it. I'll be tackling best ways to beat some of these challenges in future episodes. But for now, the next episode will focus on healthy habits to put in place in order to be a more productive and also healthy writer. Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to dream big and write boldly. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. If you're looking for more writing inspiration, community, craft tips, and behind-the-scenes content, consider joining the EAH Coalition on Patreon with various levels of free and paid support. You can also connect with me on Instagram at CreateExploreRead and find out more about me, my books, and my design business on my website, eahcreative.com. Productivity in Prose is an EAH Creative production.